Member Lorena Delgadillo. Mayor, you don't have a quorum, but
You don't have a quorum.
you don't need one for a
Okay.
work session.
I'm here. Oh, Councilman Castillo.
Okay, so we have the first presentation, well, the only presentation, West Somerton Master Plan Lake and Shelter Project concept.
Mayor, we have Shane Hanneman from J2 Design. Shane, if you want to come up and start the presentation.
Honorable Mayor and Councilwoman. Shane Hanneman, I'm with J2 Design. I'm representing the last architects and J2 Design team. We've been working on the West Somerton Master Plan over the last several months. As you folks both know, you were part of the initial design concept development that we did, the brainstorming session that we did a few months ago, actually in June. And you can see up here that we've got kind of a progress timeline. I will start out and say that staff and council and all that taking into the needs of the community kind of started to steer this. We had the brainstorming session on 6/20, and from that, council and staff provided us with 2 layouts that they saw as potentials for us to push forward. So as we started to go down that road, we thought about the fact that the groundwater elevation is going to be a challenge. So we asked to kind of pause the development of that and do some additional local testing. And from that local testing, we actually got good results. So we had to pause for a little bit, but the good news is that we got some really positive results. We were initially thinking that we were going to have the lake about 6.5 feet in the air for the water surface. Because of that, we're able to get a 10-foot depth lake for fishing and only have the lake elevated by a couple feet. So in terms of visually, that's not going to be a nearly as big of an impact. So we took that data and then we took what council and staff helped us develop, and let's go to the first slide. So let's go past that. That's the timeline. So what we've got here is one of the concepts that the team put together. I'm going to talk about spatial relationships here first and talk about the fact that I'm going to view this, I'm going to equate it to kind of like a pizza, right? You put all the toppings on the pizza, you cook the pizza, and what you can do is you can take a slice of that pizza. Well, the first slice of the pizza that we're going to take is the lake slice, right? But the pizza is made, so we know where everything's going. So I wanted to start out by saying that, but what you have here is the first concept, and we're looking at spatial relationships. You've got heavy parking on the south side. That was one of the items that was noted as being something that was really sought after. So, and then we had the shelter on the south side of the lake. There's space for an amphitheater just to the left of that. And then we also split the shelter and the municipal pool on the north side with some parking there. Had a moderate sized lake. As you may recall, we needed at least 3.5 acres for that lake size. The reason for that is it's going to be used primarily for irrigation for the high school, for Pericone Park, and also for this park. So that size is a requirement for the operation of that irrigation system. So what we did internally with LAST and J2 is we sat down and we started to look at, okay, how does that actually work? Like engineering, the sizes of the parking lots, the ingress and the egresses, and retention basins and ADA access and all that stuff. So what we did was let's go to the next slide. We started to do some kind of initial layouts of what that might look like. We oriented the parking so that we maintain the same amount of parking as was requested in the initial concept, and we stacked it along the bottom. And the reason for that is it creates this open space in the middle without putting the parking lot up against the side, because we can have the building, the shelter right next to the roadway and up against the lake. So we slid that up that way. The lake starts to take shape. The sticker that you put down for the lake itself was only 3 acres, so we needed to extend that a little bit out. Okay, let's go to the next slide. You can start to see how it takes shape. And then the last slide of this one is what that actually starts to look at. This is all feasible in terms of spatial relationships. And can we zoom in on the top right corner there for a second? So the desired features, we had little stickies that we handed out to all the folks that were voting on what they found desirable about each concept. And you'll see the municipal pool, amphitheater, community shelter, event space, consolidated parking, a small playground, and group ramadas were all noted as something that was requested as part of this concept. So if we go up to the very top there, I want to show acreages. So the lake acreage is 3.6 acres. We needed 3.5, so we're okay there. We've got almost an acre for the shelter center. That'll accommodate 5,000 square foot, all the way up to potentially a 15,000 square foot, whatever you guys decide. The space is there, right? We're holding a space for it. We're not saying that it's going to be a shelter this size. We've got 1.7 acres for a municipal pool and 1.5 acres for an amphitheater. So let's zoom out there just a little bit. The amphitheater itself can also double as an event space. So it'll be tiered, it'll kind of tier up so that you can sit, and the stage will be in the lower left part there. And you can have food trucks that could park up through that, or you can have events. So it's a really kind of diverse open area. When you've got an event space that is right next to the amphitheater and then followed up by the shelter itself. Up north, you've got the municipal pool on the northeast corner, followed by a playground and a group ramada. So let's go down to the bottom of the sheet. What we did as a design team is we looked at each of these concepts and identified the pros and cons, sometimes pros and cons standing on themselves, but sometimes pros and cons as it relates to the next concept that I'm going to show you folks. So we say that the playground and group ramada are directly adjacent. So you have like uses. You've got children playing and you've got a group ramada. So you often want to have those close to each other. You'll find that relationship in this concept. It was stated that more parking was desirable. This parking has, I think, 280 spots. So connectivity and centering of program elements between parking. What that is saying is that all of the active uses are immediately adjacent to parking, and that's highly desirable. It's not easy to achieve, but we were able to do this with both concepts. The distribution of parking here, I kind of alluded to that a little bit. If you could zoom out for just a second. We have identified that center space as all being the open space. And you've got the parking on the north and the south. And I will add that we suggested parking, angled in parking on a north-south roadway in the future for additional parking to accommodate a higher parking percentage. So you'll see that the parking accommodates the aquatic center directly adjacent to playground, the group ramada, plus the amphitheater, the event space, and the shelter, all immediately available. Okay, let's go back down to the pros. So the site offers a connection to an agricultural theme. So this kind of goes back to some of the visioning that was done with last architects. And it isn't something that we have really dove deep into yet. That's in our next as we advance this master plan. We'll start to get into that, but it starts to lend itself to being able to apply that vision of agriculture, which was a strong indicator with that visioning exercise. So building in lake adjacencies, it's desirable a lot of times when you see buildings, say a shelter in this case, or aquatic centers, to be right up against a lake. It's really highly valued real estate. It looks really nice. It's very inviting. That's something that we try to offer in terms of master plans like this. Lastly, the path around the lake has varied experiences. What that essentially means is that it'll go on and off the lake and have points of discovery, points of direct access to the lake, and then it pulls you off the lake as well. Cons. Now, this is as related to the other concept. It does not have a soccer field. And we'll talk a little bit more about that as we get into the next concept. It doesn't have volleyball courts, of which the other concept has. It would require enhanced screening from the parking lot into the amphitheater. If you could scroll up just a little bit there on that parking lot where it says stage, the headlights are going to shine right into the event area or the amphitheater area. So we'll want to do some screening. It's not a deal breaker. It's something that can be addressed, but it is something that is an obstacle, again, that can be addressed. So let's go to the next concept. Oh, let's talk about this. So this is spatial relationships that I was kind of talking to you about. You can see the arrows from this parking lot go directly into the usage areas that we're talking about. You can also see that line as the halfway mark. It almost demarcates a municipal pool on the north side, the event space, shelter, and amphitheater to the south side. So they're separate but together. You'll also see that circular motion between the shelter, the event space, and the amphitheater. What that is signifying is that there's a lot of joint use opportunities there. They're really connectable. Plus, they are directly adjacent to parking. So there's a lot of options there to present for you folks in terms of whether it be events or concerts or graduation or tamale festival, extending out into this area. There are just a lot of opportunities there for you folks. Okay, so let's go to the next concept. And this again starts out with the stickies that we did. I'm going to talk spatial relationships starting. We've got the lake. It's going to be similar in size, 3.5 acres. We've got the shelter at the southeast corner. But the difference with the municipal pool is that it's in the northwest corner and away. We have a soccer field, or I'm going to say it a multi-use field and an event space, because you can use it for all sorts of purposes. And then an amphitheater that is next to that, followed by a group ramada and a playground. Parking is less. I think it's we showed 200 spots total in this. So let's scroll through here. And we started to do the same exercise. Yeah, let's go to the next slide. You'll see how we start to develop relationships underneath. It starts to take shape, and we start to look at the actual size of things and how they lay out. Okay, let's go to the next one. So you start to see things coming into play, the actual size that these will be. And then let's go to the last one. And this is the actual concept itself. So the desired features that were on the stickies is a municipal pool, similar, larger lake, which is similar, amphitheater, community shelter, path around the lake, large playground, water park, soccer field, volleyball, group ramadas, and bridge. So the differences here are not only the spatial relationships of where the shelter's at and the municipal pool, but there's also the addition of a multi-use field and event space. Also, there is volleyball. So if we go up to the top right, we'll look at the acreages that have been set aside. Yes, zoom in on the upper right there if you could. Thank you. So lake size is similar to the first concept. We have a little bit less space for the shelter, less space for the municipal pool, and less space for the amphitheater. The reason for that is that the soccer field or multi-use field really takes up a lot of real estate. So we're having to kind of pull from those other components to allow enough space for the soccer field. Okay, let's zoom out and down. Let's go over the pros and cons of this. So the pro is that it has a soccer field, which we just talked about, and volleyball. The events or the multi-use field can also be used as a very big events area. It's flat, it's big, there's no obstructions. So it makes a good multi-use event area for you. The aquatic shading for the municipal pool has a northwest orientation. So that basically means as the sun starts to go from east to west, in the afternoon, the building as it would be oriented would create shade as it's going towards the west and providing relief for the users of that. This too has building and lake adjacencies. Again, we were able to achieve that with both concepts. And then lastly, the bridge. That was a request during the brainstorming exercise to look at the potential of adding a bridge. So there are benefits of the bridge and there's the constraint of the bridge. The bridge itself is an expensive feature. The field itself is a constraint. And the reason why I say that is that we had to rob from other usage types to get the area needed for a field. That is a U12 field. And it's not a regulation soccer. We just didn't have the room to fit it in there. So the field itself, you already have U12 fields at Pericone Park. Having another field here, yes, it adds to the potential for soccer events and stuff like that, but you already have that use in Pericone Park. So that's something from a programming perspective that to consider. The volleyball is kind of floating down in the lower right corner. It doesn't have a lot of connectivity to the other types of uses. So if you scroll up towards the top, you will see north and east of the lake itself, you've got a lot of open area, and that's kind of remnant space that we weren't able to utilize. You can extend the lake a little bit, but you don't want to extend it much because being 2 feet above grade, you still have to get back down to existing grade by the right of way to do that. So there isn't a whole lot of room there. So there's some inefficiencies with that. Okay, let's go back down to cons. There is less parking. The first option has, I think this has 220 and that one has 280. So you get significantly more parking. You've got incongruent land uses between the playground and the amphitheater. So let's go up a little bit there. So the amphitheater, if you have some sort of stage events that there's a quiet moment or something like that, if you have a playground that's adjacent to it or a group ramada that's adjacent to it, it can be a noise factor and could compete with that. So it can be addressed. It's just a challenge that would have to be addressed. And lastly, the group ramada is not directly adjacent to a lake. There's a lot of cases where we have designed parks where it is desirable to have group ramadas up against the lake just for the experience. I will tell you that there are considerations that need to be taken when you do that. When you have congregating crowds near a lake surf or lake edge, you want to protect that lake edge. Okay, so let's go to the next slide. So this is talking about usages. Let's start with the parking lot on the south side. If you remember the first concept, we had an amphitheater, an event space, and a shelter all right next to each other. They played really well together. Here you've got a parking lot that separates what would be your event space from your shelter. So you don't get that congregation, that movement, that synergy between areas. And as I alluded to with the amphitheater, you've got incongruent uses with the playground and the group hall. So I'm just going to throw it out there that we as a design team considered the first option to be more successful for the reason that I just stated, and that is that it is a more usable plan. They both work and they both achieve its desired program. So if you want to make space for a soccer field, we can do it. It does have its challenges, but it is a successful layout. It just comes down to whether you folks desire that as a program element. So what we've got here, if you can go back to the very
I'll make
first-
a comment on that. You know, seeing these two concepts, I think the first one is more, I like it better. The only thing on the amphitheater, we use our council park as our events / soccer, and it works well for what the community needs. We don't have a program that have at least now concerts every week or whatever, that we would be using the amphitheater almost every week or whatever. But if we could kind of mimic what we have in Council Park with soccer fields, but with a stage, something, because what we don't have there in Council Park, we have events and it fits the event size good, but what we don't have is parking. It's a neighborhood and we gotta be either parking on the bike lanes, or everybody has paved their whole driveway, so there's people so that's more the issue there than having. But soccer fields, when we did our master plan, our parks, we needed soccer fields, and if we have that's like our biggest rec sport here. So I don't know, maybe not having something permanent as an amphitheater, but something that would be multi-use, like having for events, concerts, and having soccer whenever we can use it. But that's what I was thinking as far as the option one. I think the other one is too busy. This one is the spacing is right, but I did like the soccer field in the other one, and I don't want to have an amphitheater and not utilize it as.
So here's an interesting thought. So the amphitheater itself, as it's laid out, is almost 300 feet long. So it's a big open area. So what we could do is we could create and maintain that open space, and you could get a U8 field in there probably for soccer or for a pickup game. We could design it in a way that could accommodate that with the orientation that you have now, and just not have that sidewalk that goes down the center, basically. It'd just be a big open turf area.
So Mayor, so you're thinking the amphitheater area there would be like an open space, multi-use?
Yeah, multi-use.
And we can certainly do that. I'm just going to open up to questions and I'll address those as you have them.
The area for the municipal pool, just looking at what aquatic centers cost, if we were to go that route, it would probably have to go to taxpayers for a bond because it's what, 15, 16 million or so.
Yes.
That's probably a decision do we want to go that route, or should we just be realistic and have a competition pool for the high school and that can be used, or do we need that amount of space there? That's what.
Hey, Mayor, that's why we're here.
And I'll jump in on that for a second. So what we're designing or what we're developing now is a template, right? The template can be a living, breathing document. This is what we've decided on now based upon what we understand the needs and wants of the community. If that need or want changes as we advance, it's very easy as we advance to look at an alternative use for that space. But as of right now, that is something that sounds like is desired by the community and by staff and council. So that's why you're seeing it.
And Mayor, if I may, where the municipal pool sits, that could be another open green area until the pool comes in, or like you mentioned, if mayor and council say, well, we want this sooner than later.
Yeah, and that's where I was going towards that. Maybe we could merge the open area for the amphitheater and pool and kind of make it work that it would be reserved until we build a pool that is open space, and then whenever there's funding for it, because as it is, the lake would be in the middle and it would be separating both. And who knows when we're gonna build that pool. So if we could kind of reconfigure this and have the area of the amphitheater and the municipal pool, that we could use that open space until we go ahead and.
What do you think about this with, if you're thinking about that, flipping the shelter with that, because that would be built or more likely before a municipal pool would, but then that leaves all of that space below as open space for the foreseeable future. And then you can maintain that program if you want, or you can develop a municipal pool if you want, but you get all of that open space right away.
And Mayor, I just want to point out one thing is, I think the reasoning, I mean, we had the pool up on there is because of,
Goes to the high school, right?
yeah, the connectivity of the high school where
That's right.
there was actually, the kids would just from the high school cross the street and then go be at the pool. But again, I mean, that would just be them walking a little bit further down.
But you're right, Louis. Thank you.
Mayor, I just want to point out, we have Mr. Juan Lopez. He's the chair of the Parks and Rec Commission here. And so I don't know if you might have some comments after mayor and council.
Juan. Councilwoman.
The need is there for the municipal pool, but I know funding is an issue always. More so for the high school use than anything. But yeah, I agree with you with the first, this first concept instead of that second one.
So let me ask this question then. Based upon the fact that the lake that's a go, we're already gonna go into lake design on that. It sounds like the shelter is being considered and may go. The municipal pool may or may not. That's long term, that's down the road. That being said, are you still comfortable based upon what Louis had said about having the municipal pool be in the northeast corner, given its relationship to the high school?
Yeah.
Or do you want to look at us flipping that so that it maintains a large open space in the short term? You're getting short-term gain, but probably long-term detractors. So it just depends on, you know, what you're looking for. If you're looking for an immediate impact of open space, that's worth considering.
Towards the east, what's there? Is it the football field or?
Yes, directly across the
So
street,
it's right.
directly
it's-
across.
Yeah, it's right adjacent to the football field, so football players walk to the fields every time. Swimmers could.
Good point. It's an additional 600 feet.
Yeah. Well, I'm just thinking, like you said, short term, next 5 years, at least we don't split the usable space and whenever at least it can be used in the meantime for some rec activities
Mhm.
there, or even more space for our special events until we build a pool. But what's the size of the area of the pool? Is 1.7, 2 acres. 2 acres. Yeah.
You're gonna have to have a little bit smaller footprint for the municipal pool if you flip it. It's not gonna be much. We can increase the size of the lake on the north side a little bit, but you might lose just a hair in terms of the municipal pool size by flipping it.
Mayor, Mr. Lopez had a question, if you may.
Mayor, Councilwoman, I had a question on the irrigation. Does that affect anything on the irrigation for that you were talking about earlier at first regarding to feed all the way the pole is, and if you move it,
The answer to that is no, because we're looking at area of open space. And right now, we are considering the area as being open, and that's what's going to impact the amount of irrigation required. Is that the question that you're asking?
yeah, because I see the pump station is in the bottom, so you would have to probably move the pump station.
No, the pump station will stay where it's at, and the reason why it's located where it's at is because there's a sleeve that goes underneath the road right there to the actual irrigation equipment as it stands. So when the high school got designed, they put in a sleeve so that, because we knew a lake was gonna go in here, and that's where that sleeve is located. So it's, in terms of cost effectiveness, it's good to have that pump towards the south side. So that will stay regardless. And that's a good point. The pump station architecture itself, like the enclosure, could be integrated in the future to a shelter, right? A building. It can still happen with a municipal pool, but it'd be more of a challenge. What that does is in terms of screening, it's a big facility and it's tall walls because you have big pumps and you want to screen that. It's easier to integrate that with a building than it is for a pool. It's not a deal breaker, but it's something to consider.
And I have a question for staff. No, the master plan was done before most of our current staff, but do you know if what the need for soccer fields, that was the only deficiency we had as far as parks. So is Pericone, now that it's gonna be we're gonna build some soccer fields there, does that take care of that need that was showing on the?
Alec, if you want to come up to the mic.
Thank you for the question, Mayor. Yeah, we're currently working with Pericone Park, and that's gonna be including 2 soccer fields there. So we're gonna have more space for that sport.
Because yeah, that's what we hear from our residents about soccer, so I would if, wouldn't want to build something in a park and not having soccer fields, but if we know that the Pericone with the additional square footage on soccer fields, that's gonna take care of the needs for that master plan. I think we could probably proceed this way and in the meantime, try to see there where the municipal pool is gonna be what. I'll have something temporary.
Yeah,
there.
Mayor, if I may, we can open those two, where the amphitheater sits and when the municipal pool would sit. Those can be green areas for practice and just not for soccer, but other things until, if that's the direction to have the pool there. We can utilize that for now until, like you mentioned before, if people, public or mayor and council say, no, we want a pool, then, depending on when that, but we could utilize, those acreages right now and actually use both sides of the lake to do those practices or events or different things like that. But I see your point too, where you could have together and be a lot bigger. So
You have a BMX practice there.
If I may, Mayor, one of the things I did want to point out is the fact that the shelter in proximity to the event space or open space or amphitheater is a very strong relationship. If you flip that, you're going to lose that relationship. And that's one thing I would caution you on because that's one of the real strengths of this layout.
Any other questions or comments from staff?
All right, so let's go back to that first slide and then I'll kind of summarize here. That one right there. So where we are tonight is 12:05. This is what we're doing right now, is we are going over the initial concepts. You'll see at the very bottom is the council action portion of this. So we are set to move into doing the pre-final master plan. And that will be based upon the comments and directions received by mayor and council. Now, I'm not going to put you on the spot and say, we need to know in order to move forward, but I will let you know that we will hold until we get that direction from you. If it doesn't come tonight, that's fine. Just know that before we take that next step, we will need that direction. And then secondly, just to make it clear, right now we are only doing the lake design. And that does not include any open space. That doesn't include parking. It doesn't include, it just basically it's the pool and the pump house or the pool. It's a big pool. How about the pond and a pump house? So just to be clear on that. Thank you, folks.
Thank you. So I guess it's two of us, but at least we both like the first concept. And with the comments you heard, if we can leave the same layout being that we do with the opening of Pericone, we're gonna have additional soccer fields, but if we can accommodate that area for the amphitheater, we could make it a little bigger for a soccer field. No,
Let me ask that one question about the shelter. Would you like to flip the municipal? with them?
no, that would be fine, right?
Okay,
leave it
so
next to the high
it's
school.
going to be similar to what you saw there. We're just gonna open up that amphitheater a little
Yeah.
bit to accommodate a pickup game for soccer, most
Yeah.
likely.
And-
Yeah.
And
More than,
Mayor, if I may, I think it'd be more Shane of a multi-use.
Sure, oh, yeah,
Please,
certainly.
Yeah, just taking that middle sidewalk out and just opening it up
Yeah.
so that,
Yeah,
if we want practices or T-ball or any other, we're flexible to use that open space.
Yeah, and it is a big open space. It's a little deceptive because of the scale of that, but that is a very large open turf area.
yeah, our issue has been parking with our special events, so we can alleviate a little bit there, and we could move some of our special events over there, that would be very helpful.
We're going to be very well parked with this. It exceeds minimum requirements by quite a bit. So, and I remember hearing that from you, is that that was something that you desired, and we were able to achieve
Yeah.
that.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
It's 6:41, meeting's adjourned.